In this video, we're going to be learning about equivalent fractions, and we're going to be able to show the number model, a picture model, and then we're going to use an interactive tool that looks like our fraction sticks that we use in class. If you look at this picture model to begin with, you can see that I have a square, and I've divided it into 8 equal parts, and 2 of those parts I've shaded in blue. We can see that that fraction, 2/8, is represented in the number model right here. If you take this fraction and you add some straight lines, for example, from here to here, and from here to here, and from here to here, and from here to here, we haven't changed the size of the hole. The size of the hole is the same, and we haven't changed the amount that's in the center, or is being represented in blue. Nothing has changed in terms of the amount or the hole, but now we just have simply more equal-sized pieces. We went from 8 equal-sized pieces to 16 equal-sized pieces. And if we look at 16 individual-sized pieces, we can see now that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 of them that are shaded blue, but the amount is the same. Now, when we look at equivalent fractions, we can see that 2/8 is equivalent to 4/16. And when we look at a number model that represents equivalent fractions, I think it's important to remember that anything times 1 is that same number. For example, if I had the number 6 times 1, the answer to that is 6, or 17 times 1 equals 17. And I want to highlight the number 1 because I want us to think about that number 1 and how we can show that. Because we know that 4/4 is the same as 1. If I gave you 4/4 of a pie, you would have 1 whole pie. I know that 6/6 of a pie is the same as 1 whole, or 1. Or 7/7, or 10/10, or 9/9, whatever number we choose. So we can show the number 1 in different ways. We can show the number 1, for example, as 2 halves, or 2/2. It's still 1. It does not change the value, just like multiplying 6 times 1 doesn't change the value of 6, but it does change how it's shown. So what we did, the number model that shows the picture model that we created, was to multiply this fraction times 1, but to show that 1 as 2/2. And that equals 4/16. So by the same reason, we can imagine that if we took and divided this one more time, divide this in half here, and here, and here, and here, and here, we're getting equal sized pieces when we're all finished. And you can trust me without having to count each one, that we now have moved from 16 pieces to 32. And we can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those 32. Again, we haven't changed the amount that's shaded. We haven't changed the size of the hole. It's just shown in a different way. So 2/8 is the same as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 30-seconds. And what was the equivalent of 1 that we multiplied 2/8 by? It was 4/4. Again, means the same as 1. It doesn't change the value of 2/8. It just shows it in a different way. 2 times 4 is 8. 8 times 4 is 32. Now, if we look at the fraction stick model over here, make this a little smaller. We're going to start with 2/8, and I'm going to move the fraction stick over to 2/8. My 8ths column is right down here, and I'm going over to, there it is, 2/8. Now we don't have a 32nd on this fraction stick, you can see, but we do have a 1/4 and a 3/12. Well, we didn't say that 1/4 and 3/12 were equivalent to 2/8. So let's test those. 1/4 and 3/12. Okay. So if we look at 1/4, for example, we know that, move this guy up here. If I started with 2/8, and I said that if you multiply anything times 1, it doesn't change the value. We have to understand if you divide it by 1, it doesn't change the value either. Just as 6 divided by 1 equals 6, and 17 divided by 1 equals 17. So if there's a number that represents 1 that we can divide both 2 and 8 by, we should end up with the fraction 1/4. And you can see if I divided both the 2 and the 8 by 2/2, we would have 2 divided by 2 is 1, 8 divided by 2 is 4 1/4. Now, it also said that 3/12 is an equivalent fraction to 2/8. What's interesting is when we have 2/8, how do we get from 2 to 3, or from 8 to 12? There's not a whole number that we can multiply 2/8 by, but we have already said that 1/4 is the same as 2/8. So let's start with this fraction, which is also equivalent to 2/8, and see if we can go from 1/4 to 3/12. 1/4 to 3/12. 1 times 3 is 3, and 4 times 3 is 12. So 3/12 is equal to 2/8 by looking at 1/4. Those are equivalent fractions.